Night was supposed to fade by now. Dawn had been scheduled, written into the sky by the slow turning of the earth. Even insects felt the shift in time, their buzzing quieting as if preparing to hand the world back to the day creatures. But above the forest, perched on the highest limb of a dead cedar, an owl remained wide-eyed and waiting, refusing to believe the sun until it actually showed its face. He had one more star to count, one more mark in the tally of darkness that belonged to him alone. The owl was a great horned hunter, his feathers thick with the scent of wind and pine, his talons sharp as the fangs of the foxes he often watched from above. His head turned silently, a full half circle with no effort, eyes glowing amber in the last scrap of starlight. His ears twitched under feathered horns, catching whispers beneath the forest crust. The scurry of mice through leaves, the faint scrapes of insect shells, the creaking breath of trees shrinking in cold. This was the hour he owned. But hunger pushed him to reconsider. Winter had not fully left these woods, though spring had been promised. Snow lingered in patches, refusing either to melt or retreat. Rodents were scarce. Rabbits were cautious. Every living thing was hard to catch when necessity made them wise. He launched silently from the branch, wings barely brushing air. His flight made no sound, not because he moved slowly, but because silence was the weapon evolution had carved into him. He skimmed between spruce trunks and over a shallow ravine, scanning the movement beneath. A vole darted, hopeful and terrified. The owl folded his wings and dropped. He struck true. Death came quick. There was no cruelty in it, only nature signing another small contract. He swallowed his catch whole, stomach grateful but not satisfied. He scanned again, listening, calculating. The horizon should have been glowing by now. Instead, the sky held stubborn to black, as if daylight had changed its mind. Then, something unfamiliar broke the pattern of the night. A metallic clatter, a clunk of weight on truck bed. Human voices. Far beyond the tree line, where the forest met a lonely asphalt road, a cluster of flashlights flickered like artificial stars. Men, coarse laughter, the smell of fuel thickening the cold air. Chains dragged, something heavy being lifted. The owl listened deeply, his feathers shivering as he deciphered the unnatural sounds. A cage. More than one. He flew higher, gliding to a darker branch where the moon wouldn't reveal him. Below, he spotted the movement of antlers caught in a beam of light. A deer trapped, hooves striking nothing but steel bars. It struggled, stumbled, but the cage left no escape. The men were preparing it for transport, grinning like they'd discovered a treasure that breathes. Poachers, the kind who stole the forest piece by piece. The owl's talons clenched his perch. He had seen this before. A trap set for deer was also a trap for everything that fed on deer. Wolves would sniff too close. Cougar cubs would starve. Even scavengers would lose their chance to survive the next storm. Humans broke the rules here, and the forest would have to pay the price. One man kicked the cage to silence the buck's panic. Another spat, bored already with suffering he caused. The owl turned his head slowly, pupils narrowing into dark knives. Night made him a spectator, a witness, not a fighter. But witnessing was not nothing. Knowledge of danger was a form of power. Then, near the truck's tailgate, he saw something stranger. A small girl, barely taller than the trap itself, wearing a too-big jacket and staring with round eyes that did not share the men's excitement. Her hands clutched the metal rail, knuckles white. Her voice trembled as she whispered something he couldn't quite hear, a plea swallowed by engines and mockery. She did not belong among these hunters. The owl blinked once, slowly, as if marking her in memory. Humans were complicated. Some walked the forest like thieves, some like ghosts, and some, the very few, like allies who didn't yet know how to help. The men finished securing the cage. The truck door slammed. The engine revved and rumbled into the dawn that still refused to appear. Tires spat gravel, and taillights vanished behind bending pines. Silence returned, but not the same silence as before. The owl stared into the direction they left, then lifted his face to the too dark sky. The last star finally blinked out. He counted it. Night should have ended. But something in the earth, in the air, and in his bones told him it hadn't. And as long as humans continued to pretend the jungle, or forest, was theirs to take apart, the night would not go quietly. Not while an owl still kept the score. The truck's growl faded into distance, swallowed by pine and fog, but the forest did not relax. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was the tense quiet of animals holding breath. Predator or prey, every creature understood when the balance shifted. The owl glided from his perch and landed on the crooked branch of an ancient maple. From here he could see deeper into the woods, a maze of shadows and tangled roots. His head tilted as he listened. Mice should have been scurrying. Foxes should have been arguing. Even owls like him should have been claiming territory with low, boastful hoots. Instead, the night seemed to wait for something. He hopped once, wings half open, scanning the ground beneath. He noticed fresh tracks in the wet earth, deer hooves stamping patterns of panic. A second set crossed those, smaller, staggered, like something had been dragged. The poachers had been busy long before the owl noticed. He launched himself into flight again, following the path of fear carved into the mud. Wind brushed past his feathers as he slipped between branches, flying low, refusing to blink. Ahead, another clearing. This one was wrong. It was too open, too neat. Several trees had been cut, the trunks stacked in uniform piles. A large hole sat at the center of the clearing, filled with metal stakes and barbed loops. A pit big enough to swallow anything curious enough to sniff the edges. The owl's feathers tightened against his spine. This wasn't a simple trap. It was a statement. The humans planned to take something larger than deer, wolves, cougars, even bears. And those who fell into human traps rarely climbed back out. The owl's talons gripped bark so tightly that dust flaked into the air. He stared long enough to memorize every cruel detail. Then he turned. The forest called him elsewhere. A sharp cry pierced the stillness. Not prey, not a predator. An animal that did not deserve to be afraid. The owl followed sound through a thicket until he arrived at a shallow ravine. There, a fox paced back and forth, whining with panic. Something flickered inside the ravine, something trapped. A fox kit. Tiny paws scrabbled at a section of chain-link fencing half buried in the soil. The kit had fallen between rocks and wire, where humans once dumped their broken fencing. The fox mother, desperate, nudged the fence, but her jaws were not made to tear steel. The owl hopped to a rock above them, looking down. His gaze locked with the adult fox's wild eyes. She did not ask for help. Foxes did not beg owls. Owls did not save foxes. Nature did not write those agreements. But humans had rewritten everything. The owl dropped from the rock, wings spreading at the last instant to slow his descent. He approached the fence with careful hops, assessing. The kit squeaked louder at the new shape looming close. The fox bared teeth, warning. He did not turn away. His beak struck the wiring once. A test. The metal rattled, too thick to break. He shifted position, struck again, this time focusing on rusted intersections weakened by weather. With each hit, the fence bent slightly. The fox, realizing his intent, pushed from the other side. Metal cracked. A small opening appeared, just enough. The fox yanked her kit by the scruff, pulling it free into her trembling paws. She looked at the owl, eyes still sharp with caution, but layered with something else too. A rare moment where survival owed a thank you it could not speak. The owl stepped back, wings lifting. He vanished into shadow as silently as he'd arrived. Behind him, the fox gathered her child and fled into brush, never looking back. The owl flew higher now, toward the canopy's final tier, where air cooled quickly and sight expanded beyond trees. The first hint of morning light bruised the eastern horizon. Faint, reluctant, he should have been thinking of sleep. Owls were built for night, not dawn. But his instincts refused the end of darkness. Too much had begun in the hours when most life slept. The forest's danger was not the predators inside it. It was the intruders, who believed they stood above it. A distant engine roared again. The poachers were returning, maybe for the pit trap, maybe to scout new places where silence could hide screams. The owl curved through air in one long arc, returning to his cedar watchtower. He looked down at the forest he knew better than any map. If the night changed its mind about ending, then he would change his role too. A hunter could become a sentinel. A witness could become a warning. The sun had not yet risen, but the war for the forest already had. The sky paled, but the sun seemed reluctant to climb high enough for comfort. Morning arrived as a rumor rather than a declaration. Mist refused to lift from the forest floor, clinging to the undergrowth like a blanket that did not want to be folded away. Every creature sensed the confusion in the light. The night wasn't gone, it was only pushed back a few steps. The owl remained awake far longer than instinct allowed. His eyes, built for darkness, strained against the dull brightness. But vigilance demanded a sacrifice. He scanned the treetops and the trails below, refusing to retreat to his hollow until the world proved it was safe without him. A squirrel darted from branch to branch, chittering about seeds and other small priorities. A woodpecker hammered against birch bark, claiming territory only he cared about. For a heartbeat, it almost seemed the forest had decided to resume its usual routines. And then the owl noticed what was missing. No monkey calls, no deer stepping into morning clearings, no rustle of boar in the thickets, no distant hoot from another owl retiring to roost. Voices of the night avoided the day for a reason, but today they had vanished before sunrise even attempted to claim its shift. Silence stretched too long, too wide, too alert. He ruffled his feathers uneasily. The forest was not waking. It was waiting. Something cracked far below, a branch under the weight of boots. The owl dropped into a lower glide, navigating the trunks like a shadow too stubborn to dissolve. Through gaps in the foliage, he saw the truck return, bumping along a hidden logging path. The back gate opened and the poachers leapt down with the eagerness of men who believed the forest owed them its best trophies. The deer in the cage had stopped thrashing. Exhaustion had replaced terror. The men didn't seem to care either way. They dragged the cage with ropes toward a patch of trampled grass and set it beside a larger, darker enclosure made of welded bars. Something inside it moved, slow, pained. A boar. Large, tusks chipped, hide torn. Caught too long. Cruelty had already earned its portion. The owl perched higher, watching from a distance as smoke rose from a small fire where the men boiled water and sharpened knives. They worked silently now, planning. A map unfolded. Fingers traced a path deeper into the forest. "Tracks here. Big cat," one said. "Now you think it's the same from last season? The one that killed the stray cow?" another replied. "If it is, we're rich. Boss wants tiger bones too, not just hide." The owl's talons gouged bark. Tigers ruled these woods by law of tooth and right. If they fell, something ancient in the forest cracked with them. The owl had seen balance collapse before. Wolves disappeared once from this land. Deer multiplied. Crops failed. Humans blamed the weather. The forest remembered the truth. The little girl stepped out of the truck. She hugged herself, her oversized jacket swallowing her slender frame. She watched the men without approaching. Her eyes sought the boar in the cage, then the deer. Her face softened, then hardened, as if she swallowed guilt before anyone noticed. She wandered away from the camp, curious or cautious, kicking pebbles. The owl followed silently above. Her steps took her near the ravine where the fox kid had been trapped hours earlier. She froze. Tiny paw prints dotted the mud. A patch of fur snagged on the bent wire. Evidence of a struggle. Before she could inspect further, a shout echoed from camp. "Kid, don't go far!" She hesitated, staring into the trees, like she wanted to answer something calling from deeper inside. Then she turned back reluctantly, footsteps slow with doubt. The owl circled once more, mind turning with a clarity that hunting alone had never taught him. Every movement today connected to the last. Each creature that vanished left the forest weaker. If the poachers continued inward, they would cross the tiger's territory. They would lay traps. They would bring their noise and fire and invention of death where death already had a keeper. The owl's wings opened, frustration turning to resolve. He must find the tiger. The forest needed its apex awake and aware. But tigers did not follow warning calls. They did not accept messengers. They listened only to threats delivered by claw or by experience. Still, the owl launched himself deeper into the canopy, gliding with purpose, heading toward the lake where he had seen the stripes of sovereignty last night. The air trembled as he passed, the jungle whispering behind him. The night had not ended because its work was not finished, and daylight would not save the forest now. If balance was to be restored, it would require eyes that never sleep, and talons unafraid to face the coming storm. The sun climbed higher, but its heat barely touched the jungle floor. Shadows ruled between the roots, thick as moss. The owl flew low in their cool refuge, his wings brushing leaves that seemed reluctant to move aside. The terrain sloped downward toward the still lake, that sheet of glass where reflections spoke louder than sounds. A rustle signaled the tiger long before the owl saw him, a presence that didn't need introduction. The owl landed silently on a branch above the water and waited. He did not hoot. He did not draw attention. He simply watched. The tiger emerged through tall grass, carrying his strength the way warriors carried scars, like proof. His stripes bent the light, making it difficult to believe he had only one body. He approached the lake and set the cub down gently near the bank. The little one wobbled toward the shade of reeds, too curious for its own good. The tiger drank, each ripple spreading across his reflection. The jungle seemed to inhale with him. Then, the water changed. A shape appeared beside his reflection, not fur, not stripes, metal. The tiger's head shot up. The owl froze. Across the lake, human figures stepped out of the brush. 2 men, 1 boy. Rifles slung ready. Their boots sank without apology into soil that had not invited them. The boy spotted the tiger first. Fear stiffened him. His hand reached for the man beside him, the father, by posture and by dominance of voice. "There," the boy whispered. "Please, let's leave." "We leave when we get our prize," the man answered, raising his rifle. "Aim for the chest. Don't damage the head." The tiger placed himself between the cub and the gun, tail flicked downward, a silent command for the cub to be still. The owl leaned forward on his branch, feathers bristling, wings ready, though he knew he could not stop bullets, but he could take away someone's eye if needed. The second man lifted a tranquilizer rifle. Sedate him, cage him, sell him. Easy money. The tiger did not growl. He stared, a predator, assessing the cowardice aiming down its sights. The boy stepped forward, shaking. "No, he has a cub." The father's hand flashed, shoving the boy aside. "Stay out of it!" The boy stumbled into the reeds, breath punched away. His head struck a stone. He cried out once, then went still, dazed. The cub squeaked, confused by the sudden violence. The tiger's ears twitched toward the small sound. 1 instant of divided attention. The tranquilizer fired. The dart hit. The tiger lurched back, not from pain, but rejection. His body refused to fall. He flexed every muscle, forcing the poison to dilute into blood. He commanded fiercely. The hunters expected collapse. They saw defiance instead. The tiger roared. The world shook. Birds launched into flight. The boy covered his ears, terrified. The father's confidence faltered for the first time. The tiger charged. The tranquilizer man fired another shot, but it went wide, the dart disappearing into reeds. Teeth and rage struck like lightning. The tiger slammed him to the ground, rifle skidding away, breath torn from lungs. The father shouted, raising his weapon, hands trembling. The owl dove, a streak of brown and white fury, talons raking across the man's face, blinding one eye. He screamed, firing wildly into the sky. The gunshot echoed across the lake. The cub cried. The dart already weakened the tiger's limbs. His vision blurred at the edges. He would not be able to finish the fight before the poison took command. He delivered one last swipe to drive the enemy back, then seized the cub by the scruff and retreated, fast, stumbling, but alive. He vanished into the tall grass seconds before the father regained balance and sight, blood dripping down his cheek. "Find him!" he roared, voice cracking. "I'll skin that owl too!" The jungle listened to their threats and offered no answer. The boy sat hunched near the water, shaking, eyes wide with knowledge he never wanted to have. He watched the reeds sway behind the tiger's escape route, hoping the hunter's bullet would stay lost forever. The owl circled once overhead, confirming the tiger's withdrawal, then perched again just out of aim. He watched the cub's tiny paw prints fade into grass behind its protector. He watched the men reload. He watched the sun climb higher, refusing to end the night's business. Sleep did not belong to him anymore. The balance that once kept forest and danger apart had been broken. And now, even in daylight, the night was not done fighting. The poison moved faster than the tiger could outrun it. His legs wobbled with each stride, claws scraping roots that only hours earlier he crossed like a ghost. The cub dangled from his jaws, squeaking with every jolt, tiny paws pawing at the air in confusion. The jungle rose steep behind them, vines and thorns tugging at the tiger's fur, as if the very forest tried to slow him down long enough to help, or to witness. The owl followed above, wings carving silent arcs through branches. He did not lose sight of the stripes, not once. Predators do not usually guard each other, but tonight all roles had been rewritten. The threat did not come from wolves or rival tigers or ancient jungle law. It came from the noisy creatures who believed ownership could be taken rather than earned. Behind them, human voices barked in frustration. The injured man cursed through clenched teeth. The father shouted commands he hoped sounded confident. The boy said nothing at all. Dogs bayed, excited by the scent of fear they had not earned themselves. Engines rumbled back to life. Metal and gasoline began their pursuit. The tiger felt the poison's second wave hit him like invisible claws. His vision flickered. The cub slipped slightly from his grip. He set the cub down gently for a breath, trying to will strength back into his legs. The cub pressed itself against his chest, searching for safety in the warmth that had always promised invincibility. He tried to stand fully again. His muscles disagreed. The owl swooped lower and clicked sharply, a warning. The hunters were not far behind. The tiger raised his head, nostrils flaring, tasting the direction of safety as much as danger. The high ridges above the lake, if he reached them, the trees would close around him like ribs around a heart. Harder for men to follow. Nearly impossible for machines. He picked up the cub again and pushed forward. The forest shifted as he climbed. Steeper now, rock replacing soil beneath his paws. His breathing grew ragged. His tail dragged. The dart's chemical scent clung to his fur like betrayal. The owl landed briefly on a near branch, watching the cub stumble. He tilted his head in thought, a question older than speech. In the hierarchy of the wild, an owl's concerns should begin and end with mice. Yet here he was, guarding a tiger. The forest canopy suddenly erupted ahead, monkeys screaming alarm. A chain reaction of fear spread upward. The owl recognized the signal. Movement ahead, not behind. He launched himself into the air, cutting through treetops. A lone figure emerged from the path ahead, machete in hand, eyes scanning the trail. A fourth man, not following the others, cutting off escape. The owl vanished into leaves, making his wings part of the foliage's breath. He waited until the man passed beneath him. When the moment turned sharp and necessary, the owl dropped like a stone. His talons slashed at the man's cheek and ear, ripping skin. The scream that followed shook leaves loose in a shower of green. The machete fell, clattering uselessly into ferns. The tiger did not see the attack, but he heard the scream, and that was enough to force one more surge of strength from a body losing command. He leapt over a fallen log, cub secured, muscles burning. The owl rose again before the man could strike back, vanishing as quickly as he appeared, just wind and feathers returning to the unseen. The slope steepened further, too steep now for running. The tiger climbed, claws hooking into roots and rock ledges, dragging his weight against both gravity and chemistry. Each pull strained his muscles to tearing, but the cub's heartbeat tapping against his jaw reminded him what must not be surrendered. At the crest of the incline, the jungle opened suddenly into a rocky outcropping overlooking miles of green. The tiger collapsed to his side, the cub tumbling into the hollow of his massive foreleg. He panted, ribs expanding painfully. Foam gathered at the corner of his mouth. His pupils widened unnaturally. The owl perched above, staring into his face with a stillness that only a nocturnal hunter could carry. Unwavering, present. Through blurred vision, the tiger saw the trees sway. The world tilted. The cub crawled closer, pressing nose to whisker, offering comfort that weighed almost nothing but meant more than any kill could give. The hunters' voices were distant now, but growing louder. The father would follow blood trails. The dogs would smell fear. The boy would watch with a heart learning the wrong lessons. The tiger pushed his head up again. He refused to die on ground he had not chosen. He stood, barely. But he stood. The cub clung to his leg. The owl lifted his wings, ready to blind eyes again, ready to draw attention away, ready to be a shield instead of shadow. The tiger scanned the ledge. A path twisted beyond it, narrow, hidden, carved by boar hooves and monsoon runoff. It led toward the deeper heart of the jungle where humans rarely dared to go, where night kept hold even when day tried to reign. The night still wasn't done. The tiger took one step, then another. The cub followed. The owl flew ahead, guiding. Down below, gunfire cracked the stillness. The forest, which had held its breath too long, finally exhaled, and dusk crept back into the light. Because this wasn't morning anymore. This was war for who would own the next sunrise.